Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're diving straight into a totally fascinating and honestly highly polarized explainer based on a recent drop from the channel Promethean Updates. Their thesis? Huge. They're claiming a massive, historic global realignment is happening literally right under our noses. A shift that could completely redefine our economies and our futures. So today, we're going to impartially unpack their exact arguments and look at the geopolitical map they've laid out, step by step. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our clinical, step-by-step roadmap for today. First, we go inside the Toronto summit. Then, we define the Carney Doctrine. Third, we break down the competing factions. Fourth, we look at the sovereign nations dynamic. And finally, we bring it all back home to domestic politics and the midterms. Now, to really set the stage, the source anchors its entire argument on this one specific concept from Patrick Gaspard. He says, I think interregnum is the perfect word to use. The death of the old model here of the world is shocking and traumatic. Interregnum. Basically, it means a pause or a gap. The creators use this idea, the death of the old post-World War II global model, to frame the incredibly high stakes of the battle they say is happening right now. Section 1. Inside the Toronto Summit. Keeping those high stakes in mind, the source points to a recent gathering they describe as literally an anti-Trump war council. According to the video, the Global Progress Action Summit in Toronto was organized by the Center for American Progress, often called CAP, and Canada 2020. And they provocatively label this event as a highly strategic gathering for the North American franchise of the British Empire. It's a massive claim, right? But they back it up by pointing out exactly who was in the room. The video explicitly names the key operators scrambling behind the scenes. You've got Barack Obama, who reportedly gave a closed-door address at the kickoff, Patrick Gaspard, running the Soros-backed Open Society Foundations, Neera Tanden heading up CAP and framed as leading the U.S. opposition, and Alyssa Salkin, who the source claims is being actively groomed for a 2028 presidential run. The main takeaway here, the video argues these folks aren't operating from a position of strength. They're actually scrambling to build a fallback plan as global power dynamics shift away from them. Section 2. Defining the Carney Doctrine. Which leads us directly to the specific political strategy the video claims was born at the summit. Named after Mark Carney, it's supposedly called principled pragmatism. But here's the catch. According to the source's translation, this actually means maintaining existing globalist structures while just mimicking a concern for working-class anxieties. Why? Specifically to counter right-wing populism. They see this as a deliberate rebrand, essentially designed to blow smoke in the eyes of everyday voters who are frustrated with radical left policies, tricking them into thinking the establishment is suddenly looking out for their wallets. So what exactly does this Carney Doctrine want to protect? Well, the source lists out free trade, the green agenda, NATO, unchecked immigration, and forever wars. Now, I want to be really clear here. This is exactly how Promethean Updates categorizes the old system. They're arguing this is the established order that people like Slotkin and Carney are desperately trying to preserve behind the guise of their new principled pragmatism. Section 3. The competing factions. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast it sets up. The video frames the entire global landscape purely as a battle between two totally incompatible visions. On one side, you have Vision 1, the global progressive network, Obama, Soros, Carney, Tanden, frantically scrambling to save that old post-war model. And on the other side, Vision 2, the sovereign nations alliance, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Xi Jinping, who are allegedly building a completely new strategic map of the world. The creators are absolutely adamant that this isn't just a standard domestic squabble, it's a battle of world-altering paradigms. Section 4. The sovereign nations dynamic. To show this new dynamic in action, the source maps out this really tight timeline of global events that totally threw out the old playbook. Check this out. May 9th, Putin announces a pending oil and gas deal with China. Then, just days later, on May 14th, President Trump travels to China. And shortly after that, Putin is projected to visit China too. They use this rapid succession of events to argue that Trump, Putin, and Xi aren't just randomly bumping into each other. They are actively and deliberately coordinating a brand new global architecture. And they use Trump's own words to validate this burgeoning partnership. He stated, "My relationship is very good with President Xi. It's going to be an amazing trip." The source notes that while the old neoconservative establishment looks at this and sees adversaries ganging up on the U.S., Trump and Putin allegedly see it as a mutual partnership. It's just sovereign nations respecting each other's boundaries. To really ground this theory in history, the video leans heavily into the number 81. It marks the 81st anniversary of Victory Day, the end of World War II. And here's why that matters. It was the very last time the US, Russia, and China were actually allied together against fascism. It's a huge, deeply emotional milestone for Russia in particular, considering their staggering 26 million casualties. The source argues that acknowledging this shared sacrifice is the absolute core of forging this new geopolitical alignment today. Building on that shared history, the source makes a bold assertion. They claim Trump's decision to issue official Victory Day proclamations actively shatters the post-war narrative that was established way back in 1946 by Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech. By openly celebrating this historic alliance, the argument goes, Trump is intentionally dismantling the very ideological architecture designed to keep the U.S. in a state of permanent conflict with Russia and China. Section 5. Domestic Politics and Midterms. So how do these massive, high-level global shifts actually hit the ground back home? Well, the video connects these grand theories straight to the gritty reality of the American electoral map. It argues the global progressive faction is taking severe domestic body blows right now. We're talking redistricting decisions mathematically favoring the right, a documented desperation within the Obama and Soros networks over the map, and ultimately a fierce existential battle to win back the working class, who are currently slipping right through their fingers. This sets up a massive ideological clash on the domestic front. On one hand, Neera Tanden claimed at the Toronto summit that the idea of the far right championing the working class is fundamentally a failure. But in total opposition, Promethean Action claims their own framework. Trump's tariffs, anti-monopoly pushes, and credit for industry is not a failure at all. They see it as a genuine economic revolution that's actively reviving the American system. So, what does this all mean? We are left with this massive, provocative question. Which geopolitical architecture will actually define the next decade? Will it be the global progressive interregnum, desperately clinging to the post-war model as their power wanes? Or the sovereign nations alliance, carving out a completely new path forward? The source makes its stance super clear, but this clash of ideologies is undeniably reshaping the global board right in front of our eyes. Really makes you wonder where these global alliances are heading next, doesn't it? Thank you for joining me on this Explainer Focus, learners. Keep studying those maps, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.